We will be starting our presentation in just a few minutes. I want to welcome all of you to today's topic on 5 tips for collaboration in support teams. I'm Sonia Balzer and I'm marketing for SupportLogic. I'll be hosting in the background for today's webinar. Our speakers are going to start presenting shortly. First, I want to cover a few housekeeping items to make sure you have a great webinar experience today. Yes, we are recording this webinar and I will send you all a follow-up email with a link to view the recording after we wrap up today. So know that we are doing that and it will be available to you. Throughout today's webinar, all attendees are going to stay in listen-only mode. The webinar is going to last for approximately 45 minutes today, and we will be doing a Q&A at the end, starting about 30 minutes from now. For the live Q&A, you can send your questions for the presenters at any time throughout the presentation. We'll be taking questions in the order that they're received, and our speakers will answer them live towards the end of their presentation today. To give us your questions, type them in the chat or the Q&A tab, which you can find either open in the column on the right-hand side of your Zoom window, or by clicking on the chat or Q&A icons located at the bottom of your Zoom window. Please do be sure to let us know your questions throughout the webinar. As our speakers are presenting, you don't have to wait until the end to let us know what you want to ask. You can even start sending your questions to us now, and we will do our best to answer all of them 30 minutes from now during the live Q&A. One other thing to note, we are going to open one polling question during today's presentation. So when you see the polling window open on the screen in front of you, please be sure to select your answers and hit submit. The poll is going to be multiple choice, so you can select all answers that apply. And once everyone has finished their voting, we will share the poll results during the webinar. Thank you, and now the webinar presentation will begin. Take it away, Krishna.
Thanks, thanks, Sonia. Welcome, everyone. Good morning and good afternoon, based on where you're joining us from. So last week, we did our first webinar series. We focused on remote teams specifically. So this particular webinar, we want to focus on one of my favorite topic, which is how do you do effective collaboration in support team. Collaboration and support comes in many different angles. You can collaborate to solve a particular case. You can collaborate with engineering to resolve a technical issue. There is knowledge transfer that you have to do, tribal knowledge that you have to share. So collaboration is actually a very key component for the success of support teams. So I'm really very interested to learn from FT's perspective. FT, our speaker today and the present today, she has decades of experience in support and customer success. We don't need to introduce FT to many of you. You probably have worked with her or known of her or read her books. She is the founder and owner of FT Works for folks who are not familiar with FT. And she has written several books, including The Art of Software Support, Just Enough CRM, and Collective Wisdom. I'm going to leave the floor to FT to the presentation, and I will chime in for question and answer sessions and share my perspective along with FT. FT, floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Krishna, for this nice introduction. So today we're going to talk about collaborating in support teams. And I think everybody agrees that support is a team sport, not an individual sport at all, in the sense that it's really difficult for any given support engineer to know everything there is to know about not just the product, but the environment the product is working. And then even if you do have somebody who knows everything, you are very lucky, that person occasionally may go on vacation, may go to sleep. So even at that level, you know, we need to do this together. I talked with support leaders. They all tell me that they really want more collaboration. And at the same time, they complain that whatever is happening right now is just not good enough, that there's not enough collaboration, that people are not really collaborating in a good way. So it's very strange to me to see the dichotomy between We want it, we want more of it, and we are terrible at it. So what I'm going to do today is I am going to share a few techniques that I've seen to work and address many of the questions that we got already in the chat, which is wonderful. Let me start by talking about support models. Any support model that you use is going to need collaboration, but collaboration is a little bit different depending on the way that you handle. So 3 models, and you might want to start thinking about what you're using right now, because the poll is going to ask you what you're using in a minute. So the traditional model, the vintage model, I call it, is the tiered model, where the customer is going to talk to person 1, right, tier 1. And then if that person can resolve the issue, great. If not, the issue is literally tossed over the wall to another group of more senior people who hopefully will be able to solve that issue. So collaboration in there is not immediately obvious, but it is there, right? In the sense that as a tier 2 person, if I get my case from tier 1, I would want for tier 1 to have done some kind of investigation, and more importantly, to have recorded that investigation so I can actually use it, right? So even though there's not a whole lot of real-time, certainly, collaboration in here, it is still in there, right? So that's the tiered model. Second model in the middle is the touch and hold model, close to my heart, because as far as I know, I'm the first one who wrote about this in 1996 in The Art of Support, which is the touch and hold model. So the idea of touch and hold is this throwing over the wall thing doesn't work very well in an environment where you have complex issues. What works better is to have one person take ownership of the case, right? And then as needed, they can go to a designated team. I call it backline. And these people are going to help the owner. They may or may not talk to the customer at some point, but they are really more helping the owner, right? So here there is very obvious collaboration between, again, the designated backline engineers and the owners. And then there's a newer model, swarming, which was codified by the Consortium for Support Innovation. And the idea of swarming, it's very similar to touch and hold, but with one important difference, which is you still have one owner, and the owner is going to drive through the entirety of the case, right? But that owner can now rely not just on designated backline engineers, but anybody potentially, right? So under the swarming model, I could, as one person, I could at some point be an owner asking for help, right? Or I could be a helper, right? Depending on the skills that I have. And we'll talk about that a little bit more when we talk about skills matrix. So 2 similar models, touch and hold and swarming, that are both really good for highly complex, not very repeatable issues. So before we go any further, I would like to ask all of you what you're using. So you might be using more than one model. If so, that's fine. Sonia's going to put up the poll, and you can pick what you are using.
Yeah, I'm curious about the poll results here. So one thought I want to share here while we wait for the poll results is one thing that has changed quite significantly since the days that I did support, which is early 2002 to 2007. It's like probably 10, 15 years now. What has changed is the way we develop software has significantly changed. So especially for software support, the implications are pretty large. So back in those days, we did waterfall development methodology. So which means you had sufficient time, support had sufficient time to prepare for supporting the software. Now, increasingly, more and more organizations are going into CI/CD model or agile development model, which means you're pushing product releases much frequently. So even today, when I was logging to Zoom, I noticed that Zoom pushed a new software update, and they had a different software update a couple of weeks back, and millions of people are using this software. So things can go wrong, and which means you have to be very closely involved with engineering for collaboration. If something bleeding edge got released to the customer and breaks, you have to be involved in a tight loop. So I'm kind of curious where people are going industry-wide, which of these models are getting traction.
Okay, I can't resist. One of the things I love working with you, Krishna, is how optimistic you are. So I love the way that you described in the olden days, with the waterfall, we had enough time to prepare for new releases. Really? No, we did not. So I think the difference now is a matter of degree, right?
Yeah.
There were no
probably
good
not
old days
worse
here,
now,
I don't think.
So maybe.
But it is true that we are in a time when things are going to move very, very quickly, right? And therefore, I think the old tiered model is getting harder to see because we don't really have that body of knowledge that we know is true, right? In order to do tiered, you need to have a bunch of stuff that we know, repeatable stuff. And I think that stuff is shrinking, right? And then the other thing I will kid you about is you are still a support person at heart, right? Because you said, well, Zoom pushed out this new thing, but I did not install it because I didn't want to take a risk, right? This is very much a support person.
True.
I don't want to be on the bleeding edge, right? At least in this particular situation. So Sonia, do we have results of this poll?
We do, and I just closed it. Thank you everyone for voting. I'm going to share the results now.
Okay. So one thing that I was expecting, but this is even more than what I was expecting, is a mix, right? So in a given organization, it's totally possible to use different models, maybe for different products or in different situations or maybe different geographies. And that's what we're seeing here. The total is much higher than 100%, right? And that's what I was expecting. I am also, my heart is very warm at the thinking that if I add up touch and hold and swarming, we get to almost 90%. That's great. That's wonderful. Krishna, you want to add anything to that?
No, I'm actually pleasantly surprised. I was thinking that swarming would be a little bit lower on the side, but I'm pleasantly surprised that people are looking at swarming and touch and hold. So that's good. That's good progress.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so let's move on. The way I've organized the discussion today is around 5 questions. The first one is about ownership, right? Who owns the customer? And then I want to talk about who can help. In other words, how do I seek help if I need help, right? I saw in the chat that a lot of you had questions about remote working, which obviously was the topic for last week's webinar, but is very relevant in collaboration. So I'll talk about remote at the same time. Who can help? Then the next question is, how can I help? So that's the opposite, right? Is I am ready to provide some help. How do I figure that out? And Uma in the chat, you had a question about, can we do this without stressing people? And I'll answer that in that particular box, right? Then the next question is, who will help? So this, to me, is the central question that I have about collaboration. And I think the reason why we are not seeing more and better collaboration is that it's not very rewarding today to help, right? And I will talk, Deepak was asking a question about metrics, and I will address that in that box, right? And then we'll end with, how do I make a change? In other words, how do you go from the current state where maybe collaboration is not that great, right, to a state where collaboration could be better? So let's get going, and I will start with who owns the customer. By the way, I do not think that I, or even Krishna and I, have answers on collaboration. So if you could, as we speak, put into the chat some techniques that you want to share about what you do that's working, that would be really lovely. All right, so let's think about who owns the customer. If you recall, when I showed you the slide with the 3 models, there is always an owner, right, in all of these models. So even though you're collaborating and you want to do more collaboration, it really doesn't work to have a shared ownership of the case. You really need to have somebody who talks to the customers. Customer prefer that. And the owner also is responsible for driving to the solution with help, right? But responsible for doing this. Note that collaboration could occur across teams. In other words, I can have somebody in support hopefully somebody in engineering, maybe somebody in the ops team, right? And all of these folks are together working on the case. If that's the situation you are in, the owner, to me, should always be a support person. We are the ones with the skills. We're the ones who know how to talk to customers. So even if you have a cross-discipline team, you really want to have the owner be a support engineer. And that support engineer will remain the same throughout, with exceptions, of course, right? So, you know, if somebody goes on vacation, obviously you need to switch, or even if somebody needs to go to bed, right? You will switch, but otherwise try to keep that to a minimum. So stable ownership, step one.
Yeah.
Step two.
I would like to add a point, FT, there. We do see correlations, very early data set for us, but we do see correlation between switching owners too often and escalations. And this is anecdotally, many of us would know that if you hear from different person every time you reach out to support, you feel like you are not being heard. You feel like the person that you're talking to does not have all the context, even though the person may have context. You think that they may not have context. So the cases get escalated much more quickly. And we are seeing that in the data set.
Yeah, I
just want to share that.
I have a customer who has been struggling for quite a few years about having too many handoffs. So they do handoffs across time zones because they want to continue working issues, which I think is a good idea. But today they don't have a system where, you know, if it leaves America, let's say I'm the owner, right, goes to anywhere, goes to Europe, comes back to America, there's really no system for me to take the case on again, right? And that has been a cause of escalation in bad CSAT. So exactly what you're saying in your data. Yeah, interesting. Yeah. All right, so let's say that I need help. How can I go find that help? This is especially true today when a lot of your team are working remotely, but I think this is a very universal problem, is who is going to help me? So one of the key things to do here is to have a skills matrix. So I have a little example of a skills matrix where you have, you know, everybody in the organization. Well, this is a very small organization, but everybody's slotted, right? So that I know if I need help with product A, right, I really should go and talk to my friend James, right, or maybe Jane, right? But if I need help with, say, SQL, then Raj is the man. I hope that makes sense for everybody. So the problem with skills matrices is that not maintained. And one of the things I said last week when we talked about remote work is you need to go create one or maintain yours like immediately, right? So that you know who is who. A lot of people think that skill matrices are good for new people. And obviously they are, right? If I'm brand new to the organization, I may not even know who James or Jane are, you know, let alone be able to approach them, right? But they're also good for people with a lot of tenure, because if you have a lot of tenure, you will tend to always go back to the same people that have helped you in the past. Nothing wrong with that, but it means that the new stars, right, are going to be underutilized. So from your point of view as the leader, it is important that I realize, oh, I thought James was Mr. Product A, but actually Jane is also Product A guru. You know, I'm going to go to her today, right, instead of going to James, whom I know. So think about that. It's good for everybody. By the way, this is a little diversion from what we're talking about, but I think I have time. One of the goals that you have with your support organization is to create what we call T people. So a T person is somebody who knows a little bit about everything, right? That's the horizontal part of the T. And then they're going to know deep into one or several. That would be a weird T, but they will have this overall generalist knowledge, right? And then specialties, right? So when you do a skill matrix, here I'm showing you the skill matrix for the organization, right? But if I do a skill matrix for individuals, right? So where's Jane, right? You will see that Jane knows a little bit about a lot of stuff, right? And then she has these deep knowledge bits. So think about it, T people, really interesting idea. Okay, so this is
if I may insert a comment, FT, sorry, just want to insert a quick comment here. So maintaining skill matrix becomes a really challenge for organizations with a large number of support engineers. And also support engineers could churn, they can pick up new skills. So this matrix metrics gets really complicated. So this is where I think technology can really help, because all this information is there in the ticket body. So you can actually infer which engineer is good in which skill just by analyzing the existing tickets. But unfortunately, until so far, people have been only relying on the expertise of managers to construct the skill matrix. But luckily, we have technology now to do this automatically. So I just wanted to insert that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just talking about principles here, but I mean, yes, AI is the solution to this, right? Because what we have proven to ourselves is we cannot maintain this matrix manually. We're doing a terrible job of it. It's just not happening. All right, so this is the technical part. Let's talk about the psychological part. So I think one of the big issues of collaboration is that people feel a stigma when they ask for help. Think about it. Most of the folks on your team are engineers, right? And they really pride themselves on being self-sufficient and finding things out and discovering, etc. So it kind of goes counter their ethic as a person, right, to be asking for help. So we need to turn that around. And moreover, in some of the teams that I work with, there's really a culture thing that says, oh, FT asked for help, she must not know what to do, right? So you really need to turn that around. One of the ways that, we'll talk about metrics in a little while, right? Obviously metrics will help, but one of the ways that I think you can turn that around is to have technical huddles. So again, I talked about that last week when we talked about remote. The idea of technical huddles is to have regular meetings, usually daily, maybe twice daily even, where we just look together at the hard cases that we're not making progress on. So think of them as medical rounds in a hospital, right? You know, when you're in your hospital bed, I hope you have never been in a hospital bed, but when you're in a hospital bed and all of a sudden, you know, all the doctors and residents and the rotation students and all of that come around your bed, right? What they're doing is they are doing a technical huddle. Now you are in the middle because you're in your bed, right? So with customers, we don't need to have the customer in the middle, but it's the same ideas. Let's talk about this case and let's figure out what we can do about it. Very powerful.
Yeah, this is
all right.
Reminds me of House MD, if anybody's seen that show. When I watched the show, I thought, oh, this is so similar to tech support. This is exactly what we do in tech support.
Yeah, so I think of ourselves in support as the white coats of technology, right? A lot of techniques that we use are straight from medicine, yeah. Right? So the tech huddles to me are a very good example of that. All right, so let's look at how I can help. So this is the opposite problem. This is, I want to help, but how do I do that? One of the things that Uma asked in the chat is, how can we do this with less stress? So this is your slide, Uma. To me, one of the very basic problems is if I want to help people, I'm going to have to go out of my way to do it. And what I don't quite understand is in most case tracking system, you cannot get the little list on the right-hand side of the slide. In other words, one list someplace that says, here are the case I'm working on. Obviously, that's important. You can get them. But then in the same place, have requests. So what are cases that are not mine, right? But somebody wants my help on them. Just as important. And usually you have to go do something funny to go find those cases, right? And then while we're at it, since I'm just, you know, doing my wish list, can I have new cases that I could possibly take on myself, right? And also have team cases, so team backlog, things that are being worked on by other people that maybe if I have an extra moment, I can say, oh, I see that Krishna is working on this case and I think I can help him, right? And go look at them. So to me, this would be a good goal for everybody, is to be able to build that kind of dashboard somewhere, if not in the case tracking system, maybe somewhere else. Krishna, you want to say something about that?
No, I think this resonates with me quite a bit. One of the practical experience that I want to share is that at VMware, when I did support, I did specialize on few topic areas, and often they will come and chase me at the last minute with the escalation. And if they have found me at the right time, I would have probably, the case would have been resolved in maybe 30 minutes as opposed to 30 days in some cases. So this is a real problem. It's especially when the team grows, the amount of communication gaps that we have and the knowledge sharing gaps that we have is just immense. So I think any tooling that helps it in this scenario would be tremendous productivity boost.
Agreed. All right, so let's talk about the central question, and this will address some of the requests that we got from Deepak in particular about metrics, right? Is who is going to want to help, right? Not just how can I find what people need me for, but why should I do this? So the reality here is in most support organizations, if I close a case, I get credit for it. In other words, I'm going to get in my metrics something like, FT closed the case. I have a quota of closing so many cases per day. I'm going to achieve on that. I'm going to get credit. If I instead help somebody else with a case, I might get some karmic rewards. I feel good. The other engineer, whatever, but I'm not going to necessarily get credit. So to me, that is the main reason why people are not collaborating more, is there's really nothing in it for them. So think about that, right? How do we measure the assists, as I call them? So a very simple way to measure assists is just to see who put a note in somebody else's case, right? So let's say Krishna has a case, I put a note in the case. Did I help Krishna? Maybe. Maybe not, right? Maybe I just wasted his time, right? So how can we figure out the value of these assists, right? So one way would be to ask owners to rate the helpers. So if I put a note in Krishna's case, Krishna could say, yes, FT, this helped, or no, this didn't help. This is problematic because, well, Krishna's a very nice person. He may not want to, put a thumb down on me, right? Because he wants to preserve good relationship, but at least you could ask them to do thumbs up. People are usually willing to do that, right? So that's a possibility. Another possibility, this is what Krishna was just talking about a minute ago, is to measure the outcome, right? Let's say that I have a case that I've been sitting on for a month, right? And all of a sudden, Krishna puts a note in it, and within an hour, the case is closed and the customer is happy. Do you think that Krishna helped? I think so. I don't know what he did, right? But without reading the content of the thing, there is some goodness to it. So that's another way to more mechanically automate this particular rating. And then the third thing, of course, is to use case audits. I'm hoping that you all use case audits for all kinds of other reasons. To help develop your support engineers, give them advice, etc. And you can just add that to the case audit, right? If I'm doing a case audit and all of a sudden I see this great suggestion from Krishna, then Krishna gets, some kind of a nod, right? Some kind of a reward. Notice here that I don't think we need to do rewards like, gift certificates or bonuses or anything like that, but we need to have them really count. All these activities in the bigger scheme of things, right? Not just tell people you have to close 3 cases a day, but to tell people assists are going to count to that number in some way, shape, or form, right? By this, and I'm addressing one of Deepak's question about staffing models, right? This goes into the staffing model, right? How do you define your staffing model? If you define your staffing model as people are just going to close cases, then you're not taking into account the help. Right? So you have to balance that out. Okay, Krishna, any comments, or should I move on?
No comments. Please go ahead. I have some thoughts to share, but I can share it on the Q&A.
All right. So the last question I will tackle, and it will be short, is how can I make a change? So as we said at the beginning, most leaders are complaining that we do enough collaboration, that we don't do collaboration very well. So how can I take whatever state I'm in right now, right? And I can move that to a better state. So these are my suggestions. I would love to take full credit for coming up with them, but I see a lot of people are saying similar things. In particular, if you read the guidebook that the Consortium for Support Innovation wrote about swarming, this is pretty much what they are talking about in terms of installing swarming, adopting swarming. So a lot of other people have tested that. So the idea, first of all, is to select an area that's not going very well. The reason is that anytime you have a problem, people are more open to change, right? So if you take an area where things are going swimmingly, cases are being closed very fast and very well, you could work with that team to get more collaboration, but it's possible that they will resist and they'll say, you know what, we're pretty good, we're not touching anything, right? But if something is bad, you know, for example, P1 cases or initial dispatch or anything like that, right? That might be a good way to get started. Take a number of engineers, support engineers, to work on that and let them do their thing. You are probably further away from the technical issues than you realize as a leader, right? So let them figure it out. You can talk to them about your ideas, that's fine. I'm not saying don't say anything, right? But let them figure out what's going to work. Is it going to work to all sit in the same room? Not today, but you know, one day we'll be together again, right? Is it going to work for them to have a Slack channel for that? Is it going to work for them to have a little Zoom session happening for the people who are collaborating? Is it going to work for them to really recognize the people who are helping in extravagant manner, right? Maybe. You don't know, right? So let them do that. Let them do their thing, right? And once they have figured it out, then you can extend, maybe, to other teams. Every team is different, but maybe you can extend. So let folks kind of do their own thing. So with that, I want to leave enough time for questions. So just reminding us that collaboration is good for a lot of things. It's going to obviously speed up resolution time, right? And because of that, it's going to have all kinds of good benefits, like fewer escalations. Remember when Krishna was giving us the example of a case that's 30 days old, right? Well, cases that are 30 days old escalate. That's just the way it is. It's too old, right? We know that. So if you speed up the resolution time, then you'll have fewer escalations and better CSAT, obviously, right? The other thing I want to kind of agitate for is that collaboration builds the team skills. Is a wonderful benefit. Most of the people I've worked with, they really don't want to do the same thing day after day after day after day, right? And so if I have good collaboration, every time I collaborate with somebody, I am going, well, if I'm asking for help, I'm going to learn something new, right? And that's a wonderful benefit. Adults learn particularly well when it's just in time, right? So if I'm learning something because my case demands it, I'm going to learn it really well. And that's a wonderful benefit, and that's something that you can use to keep people with the team, you know, reduce turnover, etc. So it's to me, a very good benefit. So with that, I'd love to go to Q&A. I don't know, Sonia, if there are any questions out there, and please put your questions either in the Q&A or in the chat, and we'll get to them.
Yes, please, everyone, if you have questions, we've got a couple that people have submitted, and I'll read those out loud for our speakers to answer in a moment. If you've been noodling on what's been presenting today and you have questions for FT or Krishna, don't be shy. Go ahead and submit them to us using the Q&A tab. If it's easier for you to choose the chat window, feel free to do that as well. Let's see, let's start with the questions we have received. So guys, the first question is, how do I make collaboration work across locations? I have several offices around the world and also folks working from home, especially now.
FT, do you want to take it, or
yeah,
I can give
I'm
some?
happy to take it. So collaborate, I mean, there's no doubt that collaboration is easier when people are physically together and when they know each other already, right? So that's just the way it is. It's more challenging when you have people who are remote. I would say that a lot of the techniques that we talked about are going to work, in particular the skills matrix, the idea of having the list of cases that need help. I really believe in technical huddles, so try to do that. One of the things that I see when people are not physically with each other is they just don't know each other as well. And so all of the psychological stuff becomes more difficult, right? What if I make myself look like an idiot because I'm asking the question of somebody I don't know, I really don't have a relationship with them. So you may need to structure things a little bit. And again, you want to get to that point of mutual respect, ideally, right? Where, you know, Krishna really knows a lot about Hadoop, right? But I know a lot about SQL, and we can kind of trade off a little bit. So I would say, do try to do technical huddles and do encourage whatever is happening right now. Do encourage more of that as opposed to, you know, punishing people or whatever. But it is very important to do that. Yeah. Krishna, anything else?
Yeah, I've seen some companies adopting some interesting strategies, making it very process oriented. So for instance, they create a case status or a flag in the CRM which says need help. And then they flip the case status. If the engineer needs help, they can flip it or put the flag. And then somebody else is monitoring that and then extends help that person. I think I could see that kind of a scenario working well in a fully remote environment or a distributed teams. But I think at the end of the day, it boils down to, as you pointed out, it's about culture. If you have a culture of encouraging people asking questions to each other, then the tooling just is just a process, right? It's just the human element is the most important element to overcome here.
Yeah. The other thing that I think is helpful is not to think of collaboration only as a one-to-one thing, right? Which is, I ask Krishna for help. I mean, it's great, wonderful. I'm sure Krishna will help. But also to be able to have, you know, debates and more group types of thinking. That's why I love technical huddles so much, because you can at least start the general discussion, and then after that you could say, okay, well, it looks like Jane is going to be able to help you, FD. You guys take that offline, right? And then you move on to the next one. I mean, that's exactly what rounds do.
Yeah, on the technology side also, there's some very interesting stuff that we can do. We can dedicate a separate talk just for that. We talk about identifying who's the domain expert to solve a particular issue. Just like the skill matrix that you talked about, that the AI and NLP technology can identify domain experts in your company and even automatically recommend to the case owner, hey, it looks like your case has been open for a long time. These are the experts in your company you may want to reach out to get resolution for the case. And those kind of guidance are possible to do today with the technology.
Yeah, so I mean, the skills matrix is a concept, right? That's the way I look at things. I look at process and concepts, right? Application of that to me would be a dynamic way to say help with blah, or even, you know, I don't know what I need help with, but I need help, and the AI system being able to say, oh, well, clearly you need help with this thing. Let me point you in the right direction, right?
Right.
Other questions, Sonia?
Yes, we have another one here I'll ask. Everyone, if you still have questions for FT or Krishna, please feel free to submit them. We will have time probably for another, I would say maybe a couple of questions. So if you want to submit something, go right ahead. But okay, guys, the next question I see here is also related to some of the comments we got in chat throughout some of the previous slides, and it's related to rewards. How can I reward helpers?
Well, first of all, I would say reward helpers by not docking them when they don't close as many cases, right? So to me, that's really really important to do that. The other thing is to somehow elevate their position. I don't know how to say that nicely. And it's particularly important right now as we're working remote. So the idea would be, how do we recognize people and say, I just want to say, you know, Raj provided this help on this particular case, and as a result, a very old case suddenly was resolved in, you know, a day. Just make that more explicit I am not in favor of heavy monetary-based rewards. I think they don't work very right. But I think effusive praise is good.
Yeah.
I would go with
I
that.
think somebody posted also in the chat window that gamification may not work, which I tend to agree. I think gamification, if you have to do it, if you don't do it right, you can end up having the wrong results.
Yep.
Any kind of gamification. There are a lot of social experiments done on gamification and social psychology and social economic studies have shown that gamification can have adverse effects if it's not done in a very scientific manner. So generally, people have a tendency to help, and people feel really good about themselves when they help. So that's a very basic human emotion. So there is really not much incentive you need to do, but recognizing that you are contributing to someone else's backlog or reducing some time is very crucial. So from a manager perspective, you should not be measuring a support engineer's performance purely from how many cases they closed and what is the average case resolution time and so on and so forth. I think you have to take a holistic view of what they have done. So that's the recognition part is a very crucial part for me from a reward perspective than any monetary rewards or any other rewards.
Here's another question somebody just submitted. Do you have any suggestions for a model that can incorporate multiple types of collaboration, say a preliminary level and then a more structured one, where we could have a more detailed for closed levels, accountability, SLAs, et cetera, and how to easily view the updates between each of the parties involved?
That sounds like an FTWorks engagement. Let's see what I can do with that. I know we don't have a lot of time left. So I will draw one picture. There are many, many answers to this, right? But I will draw one picture and I think it'll give you an idea. So to me, there are basically two steps in resolving a customer issue. One is the initial, let's call it assessment step, which is, what is this thing even about, right? And then after that, there is, well, sometimes we just resolve at that point and it stops, right? But then after that, there could be a much longer, more detailed troubleshooting step, right? So I would say for the start, a great way to collaborate is to have a kind of a, I hate to call it dispatch team because it conjures other meanings, but let's say an assessment team, right? And these people, to me, it really works very well to have a small group, 2 or 3 people, and they just look at everything that's coming in and they very quick decide, here's an answer for the customer, boom, done, right? Or, okay, we need more information from the customer, let's ask, right? Or, oh, yes, this is a performance issue. It needs to go over there to Amy, right? Who is the specialist. Right? So do that as a complete collaboration. And of course, we want to replace this team throughout the day, right? So they don't burn out, right? So that would be a very obvious swarming opportunity, right? And then after that, the cases that pop out of that, right, then go on to a traditional troubleshooting route where you can use touch and hold, or you can use swarming or whatever, but you do this in a more structured way where the owner assesses, you know, whom do I need to resolve all of these things, and how do I get to the proper specialist, or do I go to my huddle, or do I use these structured terms, right? So I would say that would be a good start. And then you could build from that. But I think the assessment team, the swarming assessment works really well. And then after that, go to a more structured way of doing things. Just one example, it really depends on your setup.
Sonia, do we have time for one more question?
We have a couple. We're going to run over. How do both of you feel? Attendees, if you have time and you can stay, please do. Otherwise, like I said, we're recording this. I can send the recording to you later. If you'd like to stay with us, we can take 1 or 2 more questions. What would you like to do?
I'm good.
Let's do that.
Let's do it. Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks to everybody who has to drop, but we'll continue.
Okay. So this question is very timely. Given COVID-19 and remote work becoming somewhat of a norm going forward, how do you see collaboration in real time evolving? How can support systems become more intelligent and in tune to proactively help?
So to me, we are obviously working in a very different way right now, right? But the principles are exactly the same. So whatever we get to work right now, whatever processes we get to work right now, we should be able to keep them forever, essentially, right? So I am a big fan of being able to see, what is it that I could work on right now in one place? I mean, if we do one thing during this moment, right, I would be a happy camper. Just do that. Just show me all the stuff I can help with at once, right? And then have some kind of Slack or tech huddles, a combination of both, right? So that we can actually figure out who can help me with that. Those would be the two things that I would really work on.
Yeah, uh, one thing I would add is we kind of touched upon in this topic in the last webinar that crisis generally forces people to come up with technology adoption or a new technology invention. We have seen how Zoom adoption, I mean, Zoom has been around for quite some time, but Zoom adoption is going through the roof right now. People are using Zoom for different use cases than what they've thought before. I presume the same thing is going to happen for collaboration. I think when people are completely distributed, we have to have a little more process and a little more structure in where you do things. And technology definitely plays a role because as you pointed out, FT, in your last webinar, you can't look across the aisle and ask for help from someone or wave your hand at someone and say, hey, I need help, come over to my desk. Those kind of little things, when they're lacking, then the tooling becomes a very important process. And being able to share your case very easily with someone in the organization, being able to annotate that case and add comments internally like a Google Doc so that you can collaborate but also document at the same time so that a person who is remote can see it and also a person who you might be handing up the case can see it. All of that becomes very, very crucial. So I'm an optimist, and I know FT, you're an optimist too. Um, about this current situation, I see this as this crisis, the situation that we are in is going to really foster technology adoption, especially technology related to collaboration and AI being smart and giving you recommendations and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
Okay, I think we've got one last question here, which is some team members are great at collaborating, either asking for help when appropriate and or giving help, but others are go-it-aloner types. How do I make them see that collaboration is a good thing?
Good luck. Yeah, some people really will do their own thing. So as we all know, we cannot change other people. Only they themselves can change themselves, right? So you need to change the environment, right? If the environment, if they see that there is a reward, again, not necessarily monetary reward, right? But there is praise, there is, opportunities given to people who are collaborating, then they will do it more, right? You will not change them, I don't think so, right? But look at changing the environment and then they will come with you. In particular, let's say you start praising a lot, right? Praising people who are very high, they may want to go and play at that point, right?
Yeah, I've seen this behavior. I can't name names here, but I've seen this experience. I have personal experience where support engineers would just keep everything to their chest. And it's almost like it's a trade secret. I know the special way to solve this problem. I don't want to share it with anyone else. They wouldn't write KB articles about it because they feel like it's the toughest case. If it'll come to me and I'll resolve it. And I felt like it was tied to the way that the organization was measuring success. It's measuring success in terms of, oh, you handled very difficult cases. You closed more cases this month over the other peers. And if you start recognizing that, as opposed to what you are talking about, FT, recognizing that you collaborated and improved, then that behavior continues to run. So I think it's human beings, we mirror each other's behavior. We want to get social approval. So I think the best way to do this is by encouraging folks who are doing the right thing and then mirror neuron in our brains will follow that.
Yeah, the mirror neurons are pretty powerful. The other thing, obviously, is think of training people just like we train dogs or animals, right? So the person who keeps everything to their chest, the one day when they don't actually do that, just say, oh my God, this is so great what you did. So just encourage every little thing. I think it's a very social thing, right? So that they will eventually, get with the program if you do not have obstacles in their way.
Yeah, I think I read a blog article some time back, which was pretty insightful. It basically was saying that culture is not about what all the cool things that you do. A culture is about what you appreciate and what you don't appreciate.
Yep. Absolutely. And if we only appreciate people who are heroes and solve their own cases,
that becomes a culture.
It'll be the norm, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I think that's it for the questions, and we should wrap up since we're almost at the top of the hour. Thank you everyone who participated in the chat and the Q&A and the polls today. Thank you everyone for attending, and thank you to our speakers. Krishna FT, I don't know if you have any other closing comments you'd like to share as we wrap up. And if not,
I would say you're not alone in thinking that collaboration is not happening as much as you want in your team. So go and change one person today, right? And if you do that, it will spread, right? The mirror neurons will take care of that.
Yeah, the only other closing thought that I have for the folks who attended, thank you all for attending the session today. We will have one more webinar coming up next week. We'll send out the details. It'll be related to this similar topic, but we'll go a little bit deep dive into how this could be practically done in your organization. So watch out for that invite.
Yes, and I will be sending out in that same email a link to the recording from today's webinar as well. And with that, we close and leave you back to the rest of your day. Thank you so much, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you, guys. Bye.
Bye.